guys, this is Wenzes. Welcome back to my channel where we talk about personal development for INFJs and how to create an epic life on your terms. Today we're talking about why the INFJ never feels enough. And it has everything to do with our first and our third function. The problem with all of this is that it's not just about personal development. It's not just about self-improvement. We go overboard. We understand that this is something that keeps us back, that keeps us stuck. We suffer because of it, and we don't make the progress we wish because we continuously look at how to improve ourselves. It's something that so many INFJs struggle from, and today we're gonna address it. We're gonna find out why this is happening, how we can reverse that, use it just as much that it brings us positive benefits, and then we can let go of it. We can remove ourselves from that situation when we go overboard and we go into the NITI loop. Let's start with it. Remember, if you want to take the next step in creating your INFJ epic life, then work with me privately. All the information you find below. So this is something that I have a lot of INFJs texting me about, writing me in the comment section, or I see it in bootcamp, where people say, well, it seems like I'm never enough. I'm always looking for what is wrong with me. I recognize myself in absolutely every video. It's like, this is wrong with me, this is wrong with me. And you get into this spiral of, okay, if everything's wrong with me, then why even bother? I'm a flawed individual. This isn't working for me. There's something fundamentally wrong with me, and I'm not going to be able to get out of it. There's just no way to see it in a positive light. And this isn't just something that you can do towards yourself when you're by yourself, for example, through watching personal development videos like this, but always with the mindset of, oh, I'm wrong here and this is bad and I'm not good enough in this area. It can also happen, and this is actually even more likely, when you meet somebody and they mirror back what you're afraid of to admit to yourself. So I've had this was actually the thing that made me have a reality break. That was the thing that made me change my entire perspective and made me start this channel. It was that I met somebody who gave me the feeling that I wasn't a good person, that I was selfish, that I wasn't looking for how other people were feeling, and that in itself made me unlovable. It made me a dark soul. So all of these aspects. And I remember this vividly because there was no way I was going to get out of that feeling. It felt like the truth. There's no way to deny it. That person was suffering because of my selfish acts, which in the end were not selfish at all, but that's how I felt at that moment. And because that person thought that, I had the perfect projection of my own fears. Because if the other person would have said, oh, why do you have long hair? Or why do you have short hair? Or why do you have a blue shirt on? I wouldn't have cared, because this isn't something that I fundamentally have a problem with. So if somebody says something that on some level you recognize in yourself, you will get stuck on that, and you will do everything in your power to prove to the other person that that is not the truth, that you are in fact a good person, that you are in fact funny, smart, established, not lonely, whatever it may be. What we forget in that moment is that it has nothing to do with the other person. Yes, that person might actually think that you're selfish, but the fact that you are stuck on them and not just saying, okay, that's a weird person, I don't want to have anything to do with them, and move on, or you just don't care, you say, okay, that's their opinion, that's not who I am, and you move on. The reason why you're not doing it is because on some level you're still struggling with that. You still believe, okay, I'm not a good person, I need to do better. And you'll see this with INFJs very often with overcompensating. So INFJs being kind to such an extent that no one could ever say that you're being selfish, that you're being just about yourself, that you're being mean. You see this with INFJs who worry that they're not careful enough, or that they're not precise enough, that they stay on something and go that much into detail because they don't want to get in a position where somebody else might recognize that you're not good enough, or that INFJ is not good enough. This is something we do all the time. And remember when I said, okay, on the one hand, we shouldn't always look at, okay, you do this wrong, you do this wrong, you do this wrong, and now I'm telling you, oh, okay, we're doing all of this wrong. We're approaching this here from a higher view level. Meaning, it's good to recognize that we can work on certain things, but in order to approach it from a perspective of, that's a good thing, I feel good about myself, I am enough, and I just want to improve because it's a fun thing to do. It's not something that I have to do, otherwise I have a psychological break, or I will feel abandoned, or I will feel unlovable. I'm doing it because I love myself, I'm feeling great, everything is perfect, I don't have to be perfect myself, and I just want to improve because it's fun, it's something that I enjoy, and on top of it, my life gets better. That's what we want to get to. And in order to do that, we have to recognize what is going on, that we have those patterns, that we have those tendencies. I know I had that. I remember people telling me there is nothing for me to be disliked. And this wasn't a compliment. It was just like I wasn't giving people any kind of chance to judge me. I was very agreeable, I was very open to everybody's opinion, but I didn't have something that was just me. I didn't have something that people could judge me for. People could say, oh, I like this or I don't like this. And it all comes from those fears of not being adequate, of not being enough. We as INFJs, we as children take on so much of, what society believes and what is considered right. And we do this from our caregivers to peers, all of that. And through our introvert intuition, which is our first function, we pick up a lot of this. We do it, and this is our first function, meaning when we're younger, we have even less developed the lower functions. We have less developed TI, we have less developed SE. And so NI and FE, meaning how other people feel about certain things, we pick that up, we create that back. Remember, our second function is our creative function. So if we have a feeling of, okay, that's how the emotional atmosphere is in that environment, and I want to fit in, I don't want to be abandoned, which are very normal psychological needs, specifically as children, we give that back. So if that situation says, okay, everybody should focus on me, we're going to do that. And we're going to feel guilty for thinking of ourselves first. So it's completely normal that we have that. And it all gets combined with our first and third function, meaning the so-called NITI loop. I have a couple of videos on this if you want to go deeper into the topic. The concept is that every single type, not just INFJs, have this loop of their first and their third functions. So they bypass the second one. And we do that because we overestimate our third function and we want to go deeper into it. It becomes an obsession. You'll see this with unhealthy tendencies. So for example, ENTJs and ENFJs, they go a lot into SE mode, meaning fighting, being really aggressive. And that doesn't mean that they have to be actively mean towards somebody, but there's this, I have to fight through, I have to just push through, I have to make it. And that happens at the expense of personal well-being. For INFJs, it goes with TI as our third function. TI in this scenario is understanding. So understanding something deeply, thoroughly, over and over again. And the thing is this, there is no way out. You can only dig your grave deeper and deeper going that route. And there's never going to be an answer that you're looking for. So if you want to understand what you did wrong so that person doesn't like you anymore, what you could have done better, how much more you can give in order to be accepted, that's a typical scenario of the NITI loop. You try to understand the situation over and over and over again, and it leads to being attracted to people who gaslight you, it leads to nervous breakdowns, all of that, because you just remove yourself from reality more and more, trying to understand, trying to find a meaning and a reason. And so the only way out of this is to go into our second function, meaning to start creating, and to start creating in such a way that you are going to be judged. That you say, okay, this is how I see my current reality, and there are parts of this reality that I don't want to show because I know people are going to judge that. And that at that moment you say, I'm going to show that part of me. I'm going to show that part of me that's maybe a little different. I'm going to show that part of me that has interests that aren't the same as everybody else's. I'm going to stand in my power. And I'm also going to use SE as a byproduct of this. So you go into the second and fourth function. You express yourself. You allow yourself to be seen and for people to judge you. So in this example, you allow for other people to think that you're a bad person. You allow for other people to have a judgment about you that makes you feel abandoned. Because that is the core fear at this moment. To say something, people will not accept you, and therefore you will get abandoned. And you might say, well, okay, I'm more developed in this. I'm not really thinking that I'm going to be abandoned just because that person thinks I'm a bad person. But it's so much deeper than this. It's on such a psychological level. It's so rooted in who we are and how we have built up our personality that it is something that we have to handle. It is something that we have to tackle in order to overcome this once and for all. So to understand that this is going on is a good thing. And then to go from a perspective of, yes, in certain situations, you're going to be selfish. Yes, in certain situations, you're going to do things that aren't right because you're not perfect. You're not. And you don't have to be perfect in order to be accepted. If you look at the people around you and everybody that you accept, love, that you appreciate them for who they are, if you think of them, they all have personal flaws from your perspective, because every person does. And you still like them, and you still love them, and you still appreciate them, and you still respect them. It is on us as INFJs to find that same feeling for ourselves. To know that in certain situations we will make mistakes. That yes, there are going to be people who will have a negative opinion about us, but it's about us saying, with all those mistakes, with all those imperfections, I accept myself. I am enough. And whoever wants to abandon me, wants to leave me because of it, please do that. And this is harder than it looks, because for me personally, getting to a point where I felt like I'm not a good person, I do things in a selfish way that makes me disregard other people's emotions, and I've hurt people in the past, and to accept this and to be like, okay, I still deserve to be loved that way. I don't need to prove it anymore, because mainly I just cannot prove neither to myself nor to anybody else that I am perfect. I'm not. I have those flaws. And, for the longest time, we try to hide it, but it's time we bring that forward and we accept ourselves with it. Because only when you accept yourself as an imperfect and flawed person, like everybody else, and you give yourself the credit for being like this and to allowing yourself to say, although I have all of those imperfections, I love myself and I deserve just as much respect, just as much love, appreciation, belonging as everybody else, and I'm going to demand this. And whoever doesn't want to see this and doesn't want to accept that I have the right to make mistakes or the right to be selfish in certain situations, like in that moment, if that person doesn't accept it, then they should go and find their own way. But I'm not going to prove to them or to myself that I have to do something in order to feel complete. It's not going to happen. And in order to actually be okay, we have to confront ourselves with these emotions. Because once you do, you say, okay, you get to a point where there's a lot of grief in the beginning. You're like, okay, so I'm not perfect, meaning nobody will ever love me, nobody will ever care about me. Confronting yourself with these emotions, you have to understand our mind wants to protect us. So it will only allow us to confront as much of this as we can handle, but it can be very much on the edge. So no matter what you take on, it's still going to be a hard thing to process. But the thing is this, we can do hard things. And once you allow yourself to process this and to look at this and you grieve it and you say, okay, that person isn't going to love me anymore, or that person isn't going to accept me. And it's not just going to be that person, but it's going to be every person from that moment on, because they're going to see those parts of me, maybe the parts of me that are dark, that are cold, all of those aspects. And you start accepting that it's actually like you've been carrying bottles of water with you or really heavy bags, and then you allow yourself once to let them go. You allow them to drop to the floor, and then it's like, okay, I'm so afraid people are going to see all of that baggage. But once you've let them down, it's such a relief. It feels so much better not needing to carry them, and you have already exposed yourself as a person who has been carrying so much that from that moment on, there is no way back, and you don't want to go back. You just feel much more light, you feel much more accepted, you feel much more in tune and in flow with who you are. You do that, and then it's like, okay, yeah, I'm still interested in self-improvement. Yeah, I'm still interested in personal development and all of these aspects. I want to create that INFJ epic life for myself, but it doesn't happen from a point of everything's wrong with me, or people shouldn't find out that I'm deeply flawed. Because there's not such a psychological need underneath all of this, the psychological need of, okay, I need to protect myself not to be abandoned. You do this only to a point where it really is fun, where it's something that makes you move forward. You're much more aware of it. You're able to make rational decisions of how smart it is to go down a rabbit hole of understanding something. So for example, imagine you're in a relationship with an emotionally abusive person, or, physically abusive. You could always understand it from that person's perspective. You could always get mentally to a position to say, oh, okay, they're suffering and I triggered them, and I wasn't really looking out for them, and that's why they got so upset with me, and that's why everything happened. We can get ourselves to a position where we can understand where the other person is coming from. We can understand their point of view, as flawed and as wrong as it might be. We can get there. And very often we do that. I've given you now a very extreme example just to make it obvious, but this happens on a daily basis. And to this day, it's not like I would sit here and say, oh, this doesn't happen to me at all. I wouldn't be that naive, because I know in small ways we do that all the time and in every single scenario. But it's about understanding more and more that it's okay. That it's okay for me to choose me. It's okay for me to look at what makes me feel good, and that I don't have to understand everything. That there will be things that I'll go over my head that I will not be able to understand, and that's okay. Because if you look from the outside to that relationship with the abusive partner, you would say, yeah, you might understand that person, but why should you? Why would you put yourself in a situation trying to understand that person? You say, okay, that's an abusive person. Your reasons don't matter to me. I'm gone. That's where we want to get to. That's the kind of mindset we need. And this only happens when you yourself get to a point where you say, I am enough, with flaws and all. It's all good. I still deserve a second chance. I still deserve to be respected. I deserve for people to look at me as a human being. And it only happens if I demand it and I don't backtrack. I don't try to explain myself more than once. I did it once. I know this is the best I can do, and I move on. I deserve better. That's where we need to get to as INFJs. And it's a continuous thing, but I believe it can make our life so much better, so much nicer, with more fun and excitement. And it's never about finding flaws because there's something just deeply wrong with you or me. Not at all. It's about being okay with all those flaws, with all those imperfections, with everything how it is right now. Even if it would stay like this forever, to be okay with that. And then start from a position of, okay, now let's improve it because it's fun, it's a game, it makes me happier, and it makes the world around me better as well. Remember, if you want my personal help with this, then work with me privately. All the information you find below. And if you want to watch another video now that is in alignment with today's topic, then watch the video on the ice cold INFJ. Like always, guys, I wish you a wonderful day, a great week, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.